It was supposed to be an ordinary night. The kind where you could settle into the weekend, shut out the world, and do absolutely nothing of value. That was my plan. A couple of snacks, a cold drink, and some mindless movie playing in the background were all I needed. Outside, the rain began to pick up, hammering down like it had a personal vendetta. I usually loved the rain, there was something calming about it. But this storm was different. The thunder boomed so loud it felt like the sky was tearing open, and the lightning struck close enough to make the windows rattle. I had never seen a storm this violent here. It was like the heavens were putting on a show just for me, daring me to sit through it. But that wasn't the part that bothered me the most. No, it was the noise that interrupted my evening, a loud, single thud at my front door. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe the wind had tossed something into the door. But after a few minutes, curiosity got the better of me. I decided to check it out. Pulling open the door, I was instantly met with a slap of cold rain and wind, blinding me for a second. I stepped outside, squinting against the storm, but there was nothing. No fallen branches, no trash cans knocked over, just the relentless downpour. Confused, I stepped back inside, water dripping down my face. My shirt was soaked through, and I could feel the chill setting in. Annoyed, I headed upstairs to change into something dry. But just as I pulled a fresh shirt over my head, I heard it again. Thud, this time louder, angrier, like something wanted in. My heart started racing, and this wasn't just the adrenaline talking. I felt something off. I grabbed a towel and began drying my hair, trying to rationalize the situation. Maybe something blew against the door again, I told myself, though I didn't believe it. I crept to the top of the stairs, my eyes trained on the front door below. What I saw made my blood run cold. The door was open. Not just unlocked, but wide open. Rain poured in, soaking the hardwood floor. Panic surged through me. I knew I had locked it when I came back inside. I rushed down the stairs, my feet splashing in the small puddle forming by the entrance. The wind howled louder as I tried to close the door, but something was wrong with the handle, it felt broken. I managed to shove the door back into place, though it wouldn't latch properly. That's when I noticed something more alarming. There were footprints. Muddy, wet footprints smeared across the floor, leading deeper into my house. My stomach dropped. Someone had been inside. Someone could still be inside. I froze, my mind racing with possibilities. Should I run? Should I grab something to defend myself? The fear gnawed at me, and despite the urge to bolt out the door, I found myself doing the opposite. I followed the footprints. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of my decision was physically pulling me down. The prints led down the hallway and into the family room. My heart pounded in my chest, so loud it was almost drowning out the storm outside. When I reached the family room, I stopped dead in my tracks. The room was dark, save for the occasional flicker of lightning illuminating the space. The muddy footprints stopped just in front of the small couch and armchair. But what really made my skin crawl were the boots. Two old, muddy boots lay discarded on the floor as if someone had shed them right there. My eyes darted around the room, scanning every shadow, every inch of space. And then it hit me. Whoever those boots belonged to, they weren't gone. They were hiding. The realization made my knees weak. I had been moments away from walking past the room, leaving myself exposed. My breath hitched in my throat as I realized they could be crouched behind the furniture, watching me right now. I needed to leave. Now. I bolted back into the living room, snatching my phone off the couch. My fingers fumbled as I dialed 911, but I didn't dare stop running. I ran out into the storm, not even caring about the rain soaking me to the bone. I sprinted across the yard and found shelter under a large oak tree, panting and trembling as I tried to stay calm. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice cut through the static of the rain, and I quickly explained the situation, my voice shaking. The minutes dragged by like hours, but finally, red and blue lights cut through the darkness. The police arrived, and 4 officers stormed into my house. I watched from my hiding spot, praying they would find whoever, or whatever, was inside. It didn't take long. Just a minute or 2 later, I saw them. The officers came back out, dragging a man through the rain and mud, his hands cuffed behind his back. I felt sick just looking at him. His hair was long and wild, his eyes sunken deep into his skull, and his clothes hung off his body like he hadn't eaten in days. There was something almost feral about him, like he had been living out in the storm for far too long. The police escorted me back inside, and 1 officer stayed with me while the others searched the house. It wasn't until they returned that I learned something that made my blood run cold. The man hadn't just been hiding in the family room. He had been hiding under the couch. The entire time I was standing there, staring into the dark, he had been just a few feet away, watching me, probably waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And if that wasn't disturbing enough, they found a sledgehammer hidden behind the couch. He had used it to break in, but the officers told me it was clear he had plans for it beyond that. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't called for help when I did. All I know is that man is locked up now, but I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there. Somewhere. Watching. Waiting. In the days that followed, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see him, the wild, unhinged look in his eyes as the officers dragged him through the mud. I kept imagining what might have happened if I had hesitated for just a few seconds longer. Every creak of the house made me jump, every gust of wind against the windows felt like it was him, trying to get back in. The storm had passed, but the fear lingered like a thick fog I couldn't escape. I double-checked every lock, every door, every window before going to bed, yet I could never quite convince myself that I was safe. One night, a week after the break-in, I woke up to the sound of knocking. My heart stopped. It was soft, rhythmic, almost like someone was gently tapping at the window. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me, residual paranoia from the ordeal. But the sound continued. Tap. 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 I slowly crept out of bed and walked to the window, my stomach twisting in knots. Peeking through the curtains, I expected to see nothing but darkness. Instead, there was a handprint. Pressed against the glass, smeared slightly as though someone had dragged their fingers down the window. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. It wasn't raining anymore. There were no storm winds to blame this time. My phone was clutched tightly in my hand as I stared at the handprint, wondering if he had somehow come back, or worse, if there was someone else out there. Someone new. I bolted from the window, my pulse racing as I hurried down the hallway. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to run as far away from this house as possible. But where would I go? I couldn't shake the feeling that leaving would only make me more vulnerable, exposed to whatever, or whoever, was out there. My feet carried me to the kitchen, where I grabbed the largest knife I could find. The cold steel felt heavy in my trembling hand, but the weight was the only thing keeping me grounded. I turned off the lights, hoping to hide in the dark, hoping whoever was outside wouldn't see me. The silence became unbearable, every second dragging on as I crouched in the kitchen, knife gripped tightly. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and rapid, and I forced myself to slow down, to stay quiet. But then, the knocking started again, this time at the back door. It wasn't soft anymore. It was harder, more insistent, like someone was trying to test the strength of the door. My legs nearly gave out as I backed away, eyes glued to the handle, waiting for it to turn. I was prepared to fight if it came to that, but deep down, I wasn't sure I'd make it through the night. Suddenly, there was a loud crash, the sound of glass shattering. My blood turned to ice as I realized the sound had come from the front of the house. I had locked the doors, but the windows? In my panic, I hadn't even thought to check. Footsteps echoed through the front hallway, slow and deliberate. Someone had broken in again. This time, they weren't just hiding. They were coming for me. I could barely breathe as the footsteps grew louder, closer. My grip tightened around the knife, knuckles white as I pressed my back against the cold kitchen counter. In the faint moonlight filtering through the rain-streaked windows, I could just make out a shadow moving in the hallway. The figure stopped for a moment, as if listening, sensing my presence. My heart pounded so violently I was sure it would give me away. And then, the silhouette shifted, stepping toward the kitchen, toward me. A flash of lightning illuminated the intruder's face, a twisted, hungry grin that sent a jolt of pure terror through my body. This was no stranger in the storm. This was something far worse.